Following the contentious Oval Office meeting between Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance and Zelensky, the Ukrainian president has come out with his first response and hardened his stance. He emphasized Ukraine's desire for peace, saying, and I quote, "We want peace, but stressed that it must be lasting and not a temporary ceasefire." He underscored the need for clarity on the U.S.'s support, noting, and I quote, "They need to know if America is on our side." He also expressed that the deal alone wasn't enough. He specifically pointed to past experiences with Russian President Vladimir Putin, insisting he needs guarantees on Putin, reflecting his distrust in diplomacy alone, given Putin's history of violating agreements. Now, Zelensky also met with UK Prime Minister Starmer. Remember, Europe has come to support Zelensky after the White House spat. Now, Zelensky was also embraced by the UK Prime Minister when he met him. Now, UK has provided $2.26 billion euro loan to Ukraine, and this loan is to bolster the Ukrainian defense. I'm being joined at this point by Richard Painter, who's a professor of the Law University in Minnesota. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Painter. Firstly, now, in terms of the question that's looming is, what will the fallout be of this verbal spat? How will this affect US's military aid to Ukraine?
We don't know at this point what the impact is going to be, but it certainly was not a productive meeting in the White House, particularly in front of television cameras, to have the president and the vice president of the United States engaging in what really amounted to a shouting match with the president of Ukraine. And we know that peace negotiations can be very challenging, and we need to try to get Russia and Ukraine to agree to the terms for a lasting peace. And this may involve some very difficult conversations, but it does not help to have the TV cameras in the room or to humiliate Ukraine after we have spent 3 years supporting Ukraine with military aid. I don't think this is going to help bring about peace. But we'll see what happens and whether Russia and Ukraine are willing to engage in serious conversations about how to achieve a lasting peace in the region.
Right, and Mr. Painter, how do you read into Trump's trust in Putin during the argument with Zelensky as well? He said he trusts Putin to uphold the ceasefire deal, while Zelensky insists otherwise.
Well, I don't know that Russia is going to uphold a ceasefire deal unless there's some means of enforcement, and that's what needs to be discussed, whether we're going to have peacekeeping troops from some of the European countries in Ukraine to make sure that the peace is kept, or some other arrangement. But we certainly can't trust that Russia will stand down from a military confrontation in the future simply because they say they will in order to achieve a temporary peace. On the other hand, it's absolutely critical to do everything we can to bring an end to this conflict, which has led to tens of thousands of people losing their lives.
Right, and could this eventually lead to tensions between the US and its allies in Europe now that many nations, including the UK, have strongly backed Zelensky?
Well, this is a very, very challenging situation because many of our European allies agreed with the United States until recently that Russia had illegally invaded Ukraine and that the Russian invasion needed to be repelled. And I think it is going to be absolutely critical for the Russian forces to withdraw from Ukraine as part of a lasting peace arrangement. Now, what we can negotiate with Russia in the short term and what can be accomplished in the short term may be less than a complete Russian withdrawal. But it is clear that Ukraine's sovereignty was violated in the war that began 3 years ago. That we've had tens of thousands of people lose their lives on both sides, and we need to put a stop to this.
Right, and Mr. Painter, if you had to predict what Trump would do next, what would you say? Because it was quite clear that he was saying that Zelensky could only return to the US if he was sure of a peace, a ceasefire deal. And Zelensky, of course, firmed that he's not going to do that.
Well, it's completely unpredictable what President Trump is going to do in a situation like this. He may very well approach Russia and try to persuade Russia to agree to some concessions. We'll see what he's able to extract out of Vladimir Putin. But I would be shocked if he were to try to bring Vladimir Putin to the White House and cuss him out in front of the TV cameras. That certainly isn't going to work with Putin either. These conversations need to be had in private with the leaders of the two respective countries. And maybe Donald Trump can extract concessions from Vladimir Putin. But so far, we haven't seen much by way of concessions from the Russians at all.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Peter, for joining us and sharing your thoughts on this development.